In the age of popularized media analysis, many creators and animation fans have flocked to the Pixar theory, the idea that all Pixar movies exist in a shared universe and thus a shared timeline. As an animation student and hopefully a future animator, I don't think this theory holds any weight. I would go even further to argue it's one of the biggest hits to media literacy in recent years. Today, I'm not only going to be debunking the Pixar theory, but also attempt to explain why people are so invested in it. Let's get into it.
Well, I don't think that thing could have gone any worse.
My main source for today's video is going to be John Negroni, also known as John in Theory on YouTube. Back in 2015, he published the Pixar theory, an in-depth analysis that explains how and possibly why the Pixar movies are all connected. He also has a website which summarizes the theory in various parts and in a handy little graphic that I will be using for this video. Before I get into the actual details of this theory, I'd like to make it clear that this video is absolutely not intended to be an attack on John nor believers of this theory. I also don't suggest or condone anyone to harass or dunk on John for this theory. I'd like to think both of those statements are pretty obvious, but just in case. The Pixar theory, as it had been published, starts with the good dinosaur. The good dinosaur, set 65 million years ago, is the first inkling in the Pixar timeline where we see humans and animals getting along. Jumping to the 14th and 15th century, we have Brave, which introduces the concept of magic through the will-o'-the-wisp. The will-o'-the-wisp has the power to make inanimate objects move, turn people into animals, and open portals through wooden doors. In the 1950s and 60s, The Incredibles introduces superheroes. According to the theory, the government has been able to harness special energy in order to create superheroes. It also is the first example in the timeline of artificial intelligence and the beginnings of a supermarket called By and Large. Toy Story 1 and 2, set in the mid-90s, bring back the concept of sentient objects. The theory alleges that By and Large, through an attempt to harvest human energy, uses toys as conduits of power and feeds off of children's emotions. Because of the strength of these emotions, they come to life. Moving on to Finding Nemo and Finding Dory, we see animals begin to show an increase of human-like intelligence. Because of her exposure to humans, Dory specifically shows how quickly animals can gain intelligence. This is evidenced by her being able to speak whale. Speaking of exposure to humans, Ratatouille is next in the timeline and further solidifies the idea that animals, through a lengthened exposure to humans, can gain more intelligence rather than just an exposure to human emotions like in Toy Story 1 and 2. Toy Story 3, however, begins to show us a level of animosity between humans and non-humans, and also acts as a stepping stone to many other Pixar films being referenced, such as Darla from Finding Nemo on the cover of a magazine, Boo from Monsters, Inc. being seen as an older child, and Carl and Ellie from Up having known Andy. More importantly though, we also see that Buzz's batteries are from By and Large, making its presence known again. Up then shows us more animal intelligence and the existence of By and Large in their universe. Then, in Inside Out, Pixar finally reveals that the source of human energy is emotion and imagination. Part 2 of the Pixar theory is set in a speculative future, starting with Coco. The Pixar theory alleges that Coco is another hint at how this human energy translates to the afterlife. Next is WALL-E, which shows how By and Large has completely taken over the entire world and government, and is a callback to the sentient AI from Incredibles. WALL-E, the character, and the ship are also products of By and Large. With humans gone from the Earth, the events of Cars 1, 2, and 3 take over. The theory states that, like in Toy Story, people loved their cars so much that they eventually became sentient. But because there's not enough fuel or human emotions to go around, they eventually die out and no longer become sentient. Because this is happening simultaneously with WALL-E, humans return back to Earth and begin to rebuild their community. After doing so successfully, repopulation has curated enough human emotion to put energy back into Earth, and also gives insects and birds human-like intelligence like in Bug's Life. Centuries later, the theory alleges that some humans evolved into animal-like monsters, rebelled against normal humans, and took over, as evidenced by the Monsters, Inc. DVD. However, still reliant on human power, monsters use portals to go back in time where humans existed and harvest their emotional energy like fear, as seen in the movie. Finally, the last part of the timeline theorizes that the old woman from Brave is actually Boo from Monsters, Inc. because of the concept of portals, magic, and human energy. Okay, if I were to debunk this theory in one sentence, I would say you made most of this up, which is true. The foundation of this entire theory relies on a made-up concept never actually introduced in any of the Pixar movies, except maybe for Monsters, Inc. But I know you want more from me, so I'm just going to debunk all of these points right now. The Good Dinosaur is a children's movie, and most children's media involve a child or children playing or going on an adventure with an animal because children emotionally connect with animals all the time. The introduction of Brave's Will of the Wisps is in reference to actual Scottish folktales, which often take travelers off a beaten path and have either mischievous intent or are meant to lure people to their destiny, just like in the movie. The entire thing about the incredible superhero magic is completely made up. The entire thing about the Toy Story magic is completely made up. The entire thing about the Finding Nemo and Finding Dory magic is completely made up. The same thing goes for Ratatouille and Toy Story 3. Up and Inside Out hang on this theory by a thread because all it states is that sentient animals exist in Pixar movies and that people have emotions. The Coco aspect of this theory is actually the most egregious one. It is clearly in reference to Dia de los Muertos and not some canonical Pixar afterlife. The WALL-E theory isn't wrong because it is just a description of the movie. The entire thing about the Cars magic is completely made up. And the entire thing about the Bugs Life magic is completely made up. Monsters, Inc. in particular is meant to be a subversion of children being afraid of monsters and thus humanizes or makes light of a problem that children often believe they have, the existence of monsters under their bed. It also simplifies human emotion in a way that children can visualize, just like in Inside Out. Lastly, the thing about the old woman from Brave being Boo is completely made up. That was a lot. Oh, but references to the other movies and the other movies, like Sully being in the old woman's cabin, or the by and large. Sure, but I would implore you to take a step back for a second and understand that real people work on these movies. Real people who care about Pixar, who have a sense of humor and have an understanding about what meta is. Easter eggs like A113 are references to the animation team, not necessarily the other movies. And by and large, like most other things in these movies, is not meant to be taken literally. The purpose of by and large is solely symbolic, representing overproduction and corporate greed, especially in WALL-E. By and large is easily identifiable as a stand-in company, not to solidify the Pixar theory, but instead be iconographic for children and parents alike. So it's silly to me to use symbolic figures to connect all of the Pixar movies together. And I have a feeling this video won't be taken very well, that people will tell me to shh, let people enjoy things, or whatever. But in saying that, you'd be missing the entire point of my analysis. I don't think the Pixar theory is necessarily bad or evil, but fundamentally my issue lies with a lack of understanding and appreciation of the film's true messages, and the stories, themes, and cultures accompanying them. I think that's completely lost if our sole focus is trying to decode a made-up timeline. I appreciate that there's an effort to analyze these movies, but I don't think it's being done earnestly. And that matters to me as a fan of animation and as a creator who likes to analyze movies. And I don't think this is just about the Pixar theory. It would be ridiculous of me to not point out that Star Wars and MCU fans do the exact same thing. I think it's great that people engage with media, and I think it's great that fandoms exist, but in seemingly only caring about cameos and Easter eggs, companies will give you mediocre sequels and lifeless spin-offs in return, where you're required to spend money to watch a bunch of movies in order to fully understand the next movies. And I'm happy that Pixar doesn't do this, so I target the Pixar theory in order to understand why people do this, why fans care so much about canon, instead of just enjoying the story that's being told for them. And I don't really have an answer because something like this isn't appealing to me. As far as I'm concerned, the Pixar theory is just product placement fanfiction, spouted by Disney adults on YouTube who make money from ad revenue. But the funniest thing about the Pixar theory to me is that John himself, the creator of the theory, seems to be making the least amount of money from this. The person wrote a book and has less subscribers than I do, less views than I do. And by funny, I mean kind of sad and ironic. Ironic that people with better editors and more subscribers are making money off of his work and his ideas. People who regurgitate his work without any new thought or analysis. I guess that's what I'm here for, and I guess that's why it interests me. So when I look at this theory, I wonder if these films would be more or less appreciated if there weren't any secret interconnected symbols that supposedly linked them all together. I wonder if the true messages of the films would be appreciated, and I wonder if grown adults wouldn't make countless videos on them. Movies, more than anything else, are a reflection of our real life. The message of Ratatouille is not animals are smart when they're around humans. It's the fact that anyone, no matter their circumstances, can achieve their goals. The message of Cars is not people love cars. It's a visualization of a humbling experience that teaches children that community is important. And it's weird to me that some people don't seem to get this, or make an effort to truly love the story that has been created for them. So when I read this theory over and over again, and I wonder where Turning Red or Lightyear will fit into this, my answer becomes increasingly simple. Who cares? And that's the end of the video. I hope I didn't come off as too harsh. I think it's nice that people spend time thinking about movies. I certainly do. But I clearly have some thoughts about the Pixar theory, and I wish people would engage with media in a way that's more meaningful than searching for Easter eggs. I don't know, form your own opinion. That's just mine. And John, if you're watching this, I think it's nice that you care about Pixar movies so much, and I don't think you don't understand the actual meaning behind these movies. But I do think the Pixar theory is really emblematic of being eaten alive by the Disney media conglomerate. But people seem to like it, so I don't blame you for continuing it. Anyways, if you like this video, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, comment your credit card information, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye!